Hey guys, Graham here from therecordingrevolution.com, and I'm coming to you from my laptop. Sorry, no fancy camera, no good lighting. I'm actually in a brand new room. We just moved, not too far, but a totally different house. Everything is in boxes, everything is a mess. Nothing is set up in here yet, and this week has been crazy. So what I wanted to do was still make sure I got a video out this week, talk about two really important things, the two pillars of great recording and great mixing, but I figured I would just rant to you from my laptop. I can't show you anything today in Pro Tools. I can't do any cool mixing tricks, but I can rant and I can talk to you about two huge things you have to understand when it comes to great recording and mixing. Two things that I have to balance myself as I'm continuing to learn and continuing to work on this craft. The first pillar is the technical side of things. You have to understand some technical aspects of recording, editing, mixing, of sound, audio, the mechanics of how it works. You can't abandon it completely, but they're not that hard. There are some things you'll have to learn. So when you're brand new to this and you're starting to record and you're laying down a bunch of tracks and things don't sound good compared to other tracks and you're saying what's wrong, well, partly you don't have a lot of experience, but there may be a few things you're not doing that you aren't aware of. The first time I started to mess around with a simple high pass filter, realizing that I could carve off a ton of low end in all of my tracks except for the bass guitar and the kick drum, and what that did sonically for my mixes has blown me away. It's still one of my favorite tips to give people is use a high pass filter on everything. High pass everything you possibly can. Until you're high passing too much, you can always back it off, right? Things like a high pass filter. Things like mixing in mono. You know, I talk about this a lot on the blog because people that are smarter than me taught me this and showed me that this can transform the way you work. Even if you don't understand why, just doing it. Making your mix go into mono with a mono button on your interface or in your DAW or panning all your tracks up the middle for a good section of the mixing process. Not the whole process, not the entire end of the process. You need to decide where your panning is going to be, but mixing in mono, how that can totally force you to make better EQ decisions, better compression decisions, better volume balance. That has changed the way I mix. These are some technical things you can do. So you want to work on the technical side of things. Do that by reading good books, listening to great interviews from some of your favorite mixers. You know, look up the albums and the tracks that you like, and then look in the credits and the liners. Look online, find out who mixed this, who recorded this, who engineered it. Try to find as much information about them and the processes they involve and implement to do it, right? So learn about how compressors work. Learn about how frequencies differ. Learn about the technical side of things so that you're not handicapped. You're not just a hobbyist that doesn't know how the tools work or how the science works. But that only has to go so far because that alone, that pillar alone, the technical side of things, the actual knowledge, school type, the academic side of things can only do so much for you. That can't make the next, Sgt. Pepper's. That can't make the next great album of our day. What you need is the other pillar, which is your own tastes, which is being an artist, which is having an opinion, having an ear, right? So when you start out, and I'm the same way, you say, and I get emails like this. I'll get an email that says, Graham, how do I get my vocals to sound like Dave Grohl's vocals on all the Foo Fighters records? That's what I want. How do I get my drums to sound like a Zeppelin track? How do I do this? How do I do that? Or, if they really want to show me a compliment, they ask, how can I get my mixes to sound like yours? Which isn't really the right question. They should be listening to someone who's better than me. But they're asking the wrong questions. Because what you don't want to do is simply try to recreate someone else's sound. Now that's helpful. And I've recommended that on the blog before here, is find a sound, find a record, try to emulate it. It's a good practice, it's a good tool, it's a good exercise because then you're, okay, what do they do to get that kick drum sound? And you move your mic and you retune the kick drum, and that's part of the fun, and you have to be obsessive about this if you want to get good. But what you want to do is have your own tastes, your own opinions, your own flavors that you like. So when you sit down to record, whether it's your own band or your own music, or you have a client and you're starting a project studio, or maybe you've been doing this for a while but you're really not as good as you would have hoped to have been, sit down and say, what kind of sound do I like personally? And then the artist, what kind of sound are they going for? And think about, what do I want that kick drum to sound like? Do I want it to be really clicky? You know, a lot of beater head, like a metal track. You need a lot of click to come through all those heavy guitars. Or do I want a nice round, full thump for something that's a little more jazz oriented, or even pop? You want the combination. Or what kind of vocal sound do I want? Do I want an aggressive, constant, upfront vocal sound like a rock vocal sound? Well, that's a certain compression style. But you want to start with, what do you like? Because it doesn't matter if you can replicate another track. What matters is, can you create art that is worth listening to, that the average listener is going to be moved by, that other peers in your industry are going to say, that's a great sounding track. They may not have made those decisions or like that same style, but if you had a vision and you had something in your head, like you can picture a sound in your head that you love, that you personally connect with, that plus the pillar of learning some technical things and some helpful tools, and not being afraid of the plugins or the processors that you have or the power of your DAW, and knowing these things and removing some of the ignorance on the technical side, and then adding your own flavor and your own tastes on your artistic musician side. If you have those two things, you can create way better recordings, way better mixes, and you can become your own independent engineer. You can have your own style. You can develop your own tastes. And with the age of the internet and the age of being able to work with people all over the world because of the internet, and not being completely forced to be local to wherever you physically live, you can become an engineer personality that gets work all over the world, but not if you don't have your own style, not if you don't create your own sound. You can't be everything. Probably shouldn't try to be everything, meaning I do country, I do pop, I do rock, I do hip hop, I do R&B, I do folk, I do spoken word, I do voiceover, I'm a composer. Focus on what you love and develop your own passions, and then balance those two pillars, technical and your own taste, and you're going to go far. That's not really a one-size-fits-all tip that's going to instantly make your tracks better, but it's what you need to know, and it's what you should be working on. And what it can do is give you hope, right? Because I've heard Dave Pensado say this, and it cracks me up because it's so true. He'll say, or he has said, that don't try to be like me, as Dave saying. Don't try to be a mixer like me, Grammy Award-winning mixer. It'll take you 20 years to be as good as me, but it'll take you 20 minutes to be as good as yourself, to be your own thing if you create something new. And that's what you want to do, is create your own sound. Don't be so ignorant in creating your own sound that it's not sonically palatable to anyone, that it doesn't translate well on multiple speakers, that it only sounds good to you in your room. If you're just creating art for yourself, that's fine, I guess. But if you really want that art to be shared and embraced by people, any kind of people, not even just the masses, then you have to balance your taste with the technical, some of the accurate things, some of the way you translate audio on the mediums of our day, you know? But if you're just a technical guy and all you care about are the converters or the summing or the sample rates or the microphone choice or the placement or the acoustics or all these things that are important, and all these things that you can't refute as being an integral part of the sound, but if that's all you care about and you don't have a vision, you don't have taste, you don't have your own opinions musically, you don't have a goal you're shooting for musically, then you got nothing. You're just a technical guy, and you're not an artist. And this is art we're talking about. This is music. This is moving people. This is like, even more than a film, I mean, it's got more emotional impact than movies can have. So those are the two pillars, technical and your own creative taste. And so balance those two as you're moving forward. Think about those two. If you have a new project coming up and you're about to do a record or an EP or a song, ask yourself, how am I balancing those two? Am I stronger on one side? Do I have a very clear musical taste but not a lot of technical background? Or do I have all the technical background and knowledge in the world and I don't have a clear vision from a musical taste? You'll see where you need to balance, and we all do. We all lean to one side or the other. So that's something to chew on. the 2 pillars of great recordings and mixes. I hope that helps you guys. I appreciate you guys even checking out the website and the videos. We're blowing up here in the recording revolution, and I don't know why. It's only because of you guys commenting, watching, getting involved, sending good ideas. I will say, if you're not already on the newsletter, subscribe. It's free. You're going to get my free ebook, The Number One Rule of Home Recording, and what it does is it gets you included on things that are happening, new tips that are coming out, opportunities to get involved in ways that maybe aren't mentioned on the blog. It just keeps you in tune with what's going on. So if you like all this content, if it's been helpful to your mixes, just sign up. It's free, it's fun, and it's the best way that I can get in touch with you guys to let you know about what's happening at the Recording Revolution. Have a great week. I hope to see you in the not too distant future in a set up brand new studio. I've got some cool video ideas coming for you about that in particular, so stay tuned. Thanks for hanging out. We'll see you soon.